NumismaTalks. Every second and fourth Thursday of the month at noon Mountain, we will be here with a new presentation. During this presentation, you may come up with questions. If you do, please use the Q&A button on your screen to send in your question, and then we will address that at the end. Now, I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Bob Bair. Bob has been involved in numismatics since 1956, first as a collector, then as a coin dealer starting in 1987. As a boy growing up in northwestern Wisconsin in the 1950s, he began collecting coins that he received from his newspaper route, and a lifelong passion was born. Bair holds master's degrees in U.S. history and educational administration. He will be presenting the fabulous $10 million Saddleback Ridge gold coin hoard. That's a mouthful. And now it's all yours, Bob.
Well, thank you, Paula. I'll hit share screen and away we go. Thanks, Paula, for the introduction, and thanks everybody for tuning in for the fabulous $10 million or so Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard. What a story. You're going to meet some wonderful people as part of this, and quite a mystery and quite a numismatic and cultural find that took place in February of 2013. Let's take a look here. Here's one of the $20 libs. 1,427 gold coins were found buried in 8 cans by John, quote unquote, and Mary, quote unquote. Those are aliases, obviously, to protect their identity and to keep their identity secret, and also the location of where the Saddle Ridge is. But they were stored in steel cans, buried in the ground, not too deeply, and the rust from the steel cans coated many of them. Minerals from the ground, calcium, magnesium, and so on, would have interacted with any of the copper that's part of a gold coin. 90% gold, 10% copper. And so there was some conservation that had to be done. But let's see how this incredible hoard developed. Here are a couple of the cans full of 20s. Most of them are 20s, and most of them are uncirculated, which is interesting because that gives some hints as to how it was that they came to end up being in the ground. We'll discover that as we move along. All right, so it's February of 2013, and here are the aliases. John and Mary are walking their dog, we'll call him Rover, on their wooded land. They had probably about 120 acres, although that part has been kept secret as well to make sure that the location and the identity of the finders is kept secret. All right, as they're walking along the trail, Rover chases a rabbit or whatever, and John is trying to bring Rover back. Mary walks ahead a little bit and is standing next to a big old tree where there was a can hanging from a wire from one of the branches. Really, the tree had literally grown around the wire holding it there. John and Mary had passed that part of the trail many times, walking Rover along, and had just always assumed that someone had died back in the 19th century, the gold rush era days, and had been buried at the base of the tree, and that the can was there for mourners or a mourner to put flowers in. Well, it turns out it was more than that. It was a marker, and we'll discover more about that in a minute. Mary, standing there waiting for Rover to get fetched by John, happens to glance off and notices that about 10 paces away to the north, and both of those turned out to be interesting comments, she noticed that there was a couple of inches of a rusty old can sticking up out of the ground from erosion, long-term erosion. Well, she went over wondering, gee, I wonder what's in here. As the note says, she noticed the can was intact at both ends, and she was picking some moss off the old can with a stick when John and Rover finally show up. Hey, Mary, what are you doing over there? Well, John, come here. Here's a can that someone has dumped. It might be full of paint. We should take it back home and get it recycled. Then John helped Mary dig out and dig around this old can, and John picked the thing up, Uh, Mary had suspected lead-based paint, and John had no reason to think it was anything else until he picked it up, and the lid on the can began to crack, and he could see a single gold coin peering out at him. It wasn't paint in the can, it's gold coins. All right, so John went back after he got the first can back home. He went back with a shovel and began digging around in that area to see if there were any more. He did find one or two more located 10 paces north of the can hanging from the tree. And He later got a metal detector to go over the whole area. Basically, he found in about a 10-foot by 10-foot square area, about 100 square feet, he found 8 cans total containing 1,427 gold coins. Here's the breakout as to the denomination: 1,373 20 libs, most of them uncirculated, 50 10 liberties, 4 fives, a face value of 27,980 for the late 19th century, where this was established as to the time when the cans were buried. That's a heck of a lot of money. All right, the market value estimated for this hoard was somewhere 10 million or beyond. This hoard is the greatest land-based hoard ever found to date in the United States. There was one in 1985 in Jackson, Tennessee, that had about 4,500 in gold coins in it that ended up realizing about $1 million. Of course, the 1988 $130 million Central America shipwreck treasure is the biggest so far, although there's been relatively recent discovery of a Spanish ship off the Colombian coast that's believed to be well in excess of the Central America hoard. It's down 2 miles deep, and currently the finders and the Colombian government and the Spanish government are negotiating to see who gets what. But anyway, this Saddle Ridge gold coin hoard, is the biggest U.S. land hoard to date. All right, so here are some quotations from John and Mary, the aliases. Mary says, John used a stick to dig up the first can. We took it back to the house. It was very heavy. John says, heavy enough that we needed to take a little breather before getting back to the house. I said to Mary, wow, this thing is heavy. It must be full of lead paint. I couldn't figure out what in the world would weigh that much. Right after making the comment about it possibly being paint, the lid cracked off and exposed the rib of a single gold coin. I knew what I was looking at immediately. It was a very surreal moment. It was hard to believe at first. Mary said it was like finding a wonderful hot potato. And the fun and the adventure is just beginning for these two. It's somewhere in this area, the Saddle Ridge and the location of this hoard. If you look to your lower left, there's the Bay Area, Oakland and San Francisco. Up kind of center top is Sutter's Mill, where John Marshall in 1848 saw gold in Sutter's Mill, in a Sutter's Mill runoff, more or less. And that started the surge of the 49ers to come out and find as much gold as they could, or try to get rich as quickly as they could. Many did, many didn't, but it populated the California area incredibly and became a part of American popular culture. As to where John and Mary are located, well, somewhere in this area. There are the Sierra Nevada mountains with foothills and so on. Nobody knows except for David McCarthy and Don Kagan of Kagan's, the ones who processed and handled the Saddle Ridge gold coin hoard. And they're both sworn to an oath of confidentiality, understandably. So this is a huge area. Who knows where this hoard was actually located? Here's one of the cans as it was dug out. Took a picture of it. Uh, Old rusty cans. One of the cans was identifiable as having contained Folgers baking powder. It was a can style used in the 1880s. So there's some indication of a time frame, but there is more of a time frame that's available when we consider the dates of the coins, and that'll be coming up in a future slide. There's David McCarthy's hand as he's pointing to that was the first can that John and Mary found, and that was in the foreground is the stick that Mary was using to scrape off the moss and to scrape some of the dirt away from the can as it was sticking out. And she used it later to dig out the rest. And there are a couple of the other cans quite intact but pretty rusted as that were part of the hoard. Here's another one, and you can see here that this one had pretty much collapsed because of rust and time and minerals in the ground and so on. This would be a conservation job with many of the coins that are in here, but as you look at those, you can sense, yeah, all or most of those are 20 libs, part of the 1,373 20 libs in this hoard. Here's three more of the cans, chock full. Once again, heavily 20 libs in the cans. And here's a couple more yet, once again. And you can tell even here, with the lids off these relatively intact cans, you can sense that these are uncirculated or almost uncirculated coins for the most part. There were some circulated coins in the hoard, but not many. It was mostly unks. Here's another one with a lot of dirt and debris around the stack of 20s that is in the center of it. Here's a very nice 10 that came out of that hoard. You can see, a little bit of contact marks in front of Liberty's nose and a little bit behind her neck, but basically full luster and brilliant uncirculated. Looks like some carbon spots on the eagle's wing and over at about 11 o'clock on in the denticle area that may or may not have come off with conservation. David McCarthy, I've talked with him a couple of times about this hoard, and he made clear at the start that he was under a confidentiality oath. But I said, oh, I want to do a presentation on this, and I know some things about it, but you can help me out. He mentioned that he and Kagan's used multiple solutions designed to soak the coins in, depending on what the solution was intended to remove, whether it would be iron oxide or rust from the cans, or who knows, magnesium or calcium from the ground. But obviously no mechanical or cleaning took place of these coins, just a soaking in various conservation fluids or solutions that Kagan's had worked out with some chemists. Here's David Hall, formerly of PCGS, and really the founding inspiration behind PCGS, along with 30 or so other pioneers who started third-party grading. But he's holding up one of the special labels that PCGS, when they were contacted about slabbing, grading, authenticating, grading, and slabbing these coins, obviously they wanted to have a special label for this hoard, indicating its provenance. Here he is with another stack of very nice looking, appears to be all or mostly all 20s. Okay, the coins ranged, now we get to the date situation. The coins ranged from 1849 up to and including 1894, but did not go past 1894. This would seem to imply that the person who buried the coins in a 10 foot by 10 foot or so, 100 square foot area, was the same person. And presumably that person died in 1894 or 95 because there had been a steady stream of, well, with 8 cans, there'd obviously been multiple burials. Whether, 2 or 3 were done at one time depended on the guy's financial circumstances. The late 1880s did have more dates, so perhaps multiple cans were buried at that time. But really, the New Orleans mint was represented. There's a Carson City mint. The Philly mint we saw on the prior 10 that was in really nice shape. The San Francisco mint, obviously, they're well represented from mints around the country. Oh, and there's a Dahlonega. That's a Dahlonega 5. That looks like one that had been cleaned. John admitted that roughly 200 of the coins he spent time cleaning, thinking he was improving them. Well, we all kind of, our eyes roll at the thought of that. This one wasn't cleaned badly enough to get a details grade, but it does appear to have been circulated, yes, but perhaps also lightly rubbed. But still, what a find, and from what a number of mints this hoard involved. Here's another, just a nice grouping of the Saddle Ridge. I just so love sharing this with you guys. I mean, the research that I did was so much fun. Finding out about the coins, yes, but also the people involved. And there will be more on that coming up. Here's a whole group of them. Don't we wish we had, gee, even one or two of those? And no doubt some of you out there in the audience are the proud owners of one or more of these incredibly historic and valuable and beautiful pieces. Here's a nice a nice 10, 1886S. Looking at this one, you can see a little ping in front of Liberty's nose, but not much else. Great eye appeal, and with any conservation that may have been necessary, originality, because this was not one that had been cleaned by John, and of course Kagan's didn't do any of that other than the conservation involving soaking the coins. This is the pick of the litter, guys. This is an 1866 no motto 20. Basically, in 1866, it was the first year that the motto, "In God We Trust," was placed on 20s. And on the reverse, where the oval of the stars above the eagle's head is, that's where the motto, "In God We Trust," was placed in the Type 2 20 libs. The Type 1 20 libs didn't have that. Well, in 1866, the San Francisco Mint didn't get the dies from Philadelphia with "In God We Trust" added until they had already begun production on some number of what are now referred to as no motto 1866 S20s. We'll have a breakdown of the figures on that coming up later. But this is the finest known 1866 S no motto 20 known. It's graded MS62. You can see that Liberty's cheek has some bag marks, some friction, and there's kind of a cut under her eye, and it looks like a little slash back about 4 o'clock by one of the stars. And there's there's a disfiguration and a little cut above the eagle's head, but essentially it's still a nice uncirculated piece, and it's the finest known. Of the 1866 S no mottos, most of them went into circulation fairly quickly. That's why they were created and intended, was for circulation, and that's where most of them went. This one shows no signs of wear on the high points and is the finest known. More on it later as well. Well, all right, we might be wondering. So, all right, these coins are dated 1847 to 94. Where did they come from? As usual, whenever something incredible like this comes up, all sorts of speculation develops. Everybody thinks they know or have an explanation for where they came from or who did it. One of the early rumors was this must have been the Jesse James gang. Well, wait a minute. No, Jesse was born the year the oldest coin in the hoard was minted, and he died 12 years before the newest coin in the hoard was minted. So it wasn't Jesse, at least, and his gang was broken up as most of the outlaw gangs were, so it doesn't seem to be the Jesse James gang. Well, how about Black Bart, a legendary stagecoach robber in the California area? He started robbing stagecoaches in 1877, but he had to stop in 1855 because they caught him and sent him off to prison. So it doesn't seem to be Black Bart. Okay, how about the Knights of the Golden Circle? This is an organization that involved Southerners, but also some Southern Union state people, Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana, Southern Ohio, for instance. The Knights of the Golden Circle were committed to the idea that the Civil War really wasn't over, that there would be a renewal of it or a second Civil War. So a theory was propounded that the Knights of the Golden Circle buried these gold coins to finance the Second Civil War. Well, you'd think, wait a minute, by 1894, the date of the newest coin in the hoard, you'd think that the Knights of the Golden Circle would have realized that a second Civil War just really wasn't going to happen. It wasn't in the cards. Don't you think at least one of the group would have dug up the gold to put it to other uses? And here's a theory that this actually got substantial publicity, and I'll spend some time explaining how it couldn't possibly have been Walter Dimmock. Walter Dimmock was a chief cashier from 1898 to 1901. He went to prison in 1901 because he had stolen 30,000 in 20s, which have never been recovered. So those of you out there in the audience, don't despair if someone beat you to the Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard. The Dimmock hoard is out there somewhere and hasn't been found. He was put in prison in 1901. He got out 1909, I think it was, and he died in 1930. But all that time, he never showed any signs of great wealth. Whatever he did with the coins is completely unknown. People kept an eye on him, especially mint people, and who knows, the incipient FBI would have kept an eye on him, but there didn't seem to be any connection between Dimmock in his later life and the $30,000 in 20 libs stolen in 1899 by him. We'll develop more on the Dimmock theory in a little bit here. We're going to look at some film clips now from the time. You'll see some familiar TV news faces as they describe what this hoard was and what it meant. And this was part of getting really the whole country excited about the Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard. We'll see another film now with Kagan and McCarthy done in Atlanta. Now we'll go to a news clip from the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland area, where it appears that an amateur coin historian, also a fishing guide, had gotten a hold of the local news people and indicated that he knew the source of this. They're stolen coins. Walter Dimmock, that cashier at the San Francisco Mint, had done it. And they base this news clip is based on that supposition, which I'll spend some time later, a few slides later, going over to indicate how no, it could not possibly have been done by Dimmock. But here's the local clip. Well, where did the Dimmock theory came from? It was someone who had his 15 minutes of fame, more or less, a fishing guide and amateur coin historian. He floated, pun intended, this far-fetched theory. All right, why is it not possible that Dimmock did it? All right, let's look at the bullet points. He stole 30,000 in 20s, but the hoard, the Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard, he stole them from the San Francisco Mint, but the Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard is a mix of mints. The Dahlonega Mint, the Philadelphia Mint, the Carson City Mint, and from the New Orleans Mint. All right. It also has the 50, 10s, and 4 5s, but Dimmock just stole 20s. The hoard covers the years 47 to 94. About a third of the coins circulated. All right, any circulated coins coming into the San Francisco Mint would have been melted and recycled into new coins. None of the mints ever stored back year coins beyond a year or two. They didn't have the space. Their business was to make coins for the economy, and that's what they did. These Hoard coins would have had to have been mint stored for a minimum of 7 years and a maximum of 54 years if they'd been stolen by Dimick from the San Francisco Mint. All right, but here's the U.S. Mint spokesman that really puts the final nail in the coffin on this one. Quote, we do not have any information linking the Saddle Ridge hoard coins to any thefts at any United States Mint facility. We've done quite a bit of research, and we've got a crack team of liars. And trust me, if this was U.S. government property, we'd be going after it. Adam Stump, spokesman for the United States Mint. So, folks, the Dimick hoard hasn't been found. It's still out there somewhere, just waiting for someone like you to come up with it. But no, Dimick didn't do the Saddle Ridge gold coin hoard. Oh, and he continued to speak. The amateur coin historian continues to speak on this. I feel very strongly I've solved the case, and I gotta move this so I can read it. And what had happened? There's no real direct proof, but I'm getting more research in on this. I sent him a letter with a stamped self-addressed envelope telling him I was working on a PowerPoint, and I asked him how his research was coming and asked that he write me back and update me on his findings. Well, to date, the present time, I haven't heard back from the amateur coin historian. He speaks. Sometimes people they dig a hole for themselves that gets deeper and deeper. Here's another amateur coin historian fishing guide comment. Speaking about the 66S no motto, the finest known. Quote, this was someone's private coin, created by the mint manager or someone with access to the inner workings of the old granite lady. Well, that's a commonly used term for the original San Francisco Mint. It, quote, it was likely created in revenge for the assassination of Lincoln the previous year, which happened April 14th, 1865. I don't believe that coin ever left the mint until the robbery. For it to show up as part of the treasure find links it directly to that inside job at the turn of the century at the San Francisco Mint. Well, let's look at the stats a little bit. There were 120,000 no motto coins, 20 libs, minted for circulation before the dies came from Philadelphia. When they came from Philadelphia, another 842,250 with the motto "In God We Trust" were put on that number of $20 libs. So this, all right, 120,000 of the no motto were made, but this is revenge for Lincoln's assassination. Well, I'm sorry, I just can't believe that these 120,000 no motto coins, or even one of them, have anything whatsoever to do with Lincoln's 1865 assassination. I'm still waiting for the amateur historian to respond and tell me why there is a connection. All right, now we learn more about John and Mary, and to use those aliases. John's, I guess, a typical guy. They, I believe, both worked out of their home. I'm pretty sure Mary did from what she says, but I'm speculating now, just like the amateur fishing guide. But here's John, who's got a mortgage to pay. Of course, she does too, while they're married. John says, like a lot of people lately, we've had some financial trials. I feel extreme gratitude that we can keep our beloved property. All right, Mary says, we're the same people we were before, just with more freedom of choice. Our finances won't have to dictate so many of our day-to-day decisions. Money can change other people's perceptions of us more than our own perceptions of ourselves. Here's what they would like to do with much of their newly acquired money. We'd like to help other people with some of this money. There are people in our community who are hungry and don't have enough to eat. We'll also donate to the arts and other overlooked causes. Just for a speculation here, because she's interested in the arts, the symphony, the museums, or whatever, my speculation is that she was an artist, a musician, a poet, or whatever. Back to Mary. In a way, it's been good to have time between finding the coins and being able to sell them in order to prepare and adjust. It's given us an opportunity to think about how to give back. You got to love people like that, you know. Basic core values. Yes, we get to keep our property, but hey, we're going to help people who don't have enough to eat. We're going to help the arts and other overlooked causes. Uh, if you have, I mean, all of us would like to have 10 or so million. Do we need it? Well, probably not. Do we want it? Of course. But ultimately, when you find people like this who actually get the opportunity to deal with around $10 million or so, and they want to give back to people who are hurting in some way or to support the arts, you just got to love these people, in my opinion. So, do we have any clue today as to who really was involved with burying these Saddle Ridge gold coin hoards? Nope, unfortunately. Researcher Dan Owens, and I've got a kind of a footnote down at the bottom, Coin World, March 19th of 2018, featured Dan Owens' article summarizing his research. All right, he focused trying to figure out who could have had enough money. I mean, it was over 27,000 face value in the late 19th centuries when that's big money, real big money. But all right, he noted that almost half of the Hoard's coins came from 89, 90, and 92, most of them mint state. All right, he went to the San Francisco Mint records, Assay Office records, National Archive records, and Wells Fargo Bank, well established in California by the late 19th century, looking for individuals who were receiving large gold payouts in those years. Well, there were a few suspects that emerged for Dan Owens, but unfortunately, each one had likely disqualifying characteristics. I mean, one of the people he found was named Henry Dodge. In 1889, he received 21,800 in gold, but he died in 1902 with an unburied estate of over 600,000. And that got Dan and me and probably you wondering, okay, if this guy got 21,800 and buried it in the ground, why didn't he bury the rest of his, much of the rest of his estate of over 600,000? Why would he stop in uh, with just 21,000 before he died in 1902? All of the others that Dan Owens came up with had some, they died too soon, or they didn't have get quite enough money, whatever the situation was, he was unable to come up with a clear suspect to say, I think it was this guy. And here's why I feel that he was the one who buried the hoard. Well, we come back to, I just got some samplers from that era. Here's this guy appears to have a gold chain around his necklace, around his neck. This might be one of the 49ers who actually did well and discovered enough gold out there that who knows, it might have even been him, whoever he was. It was the 49er gold rush was really something. Here you even see a lady involved helping probably family members as they're using sluice boxes to try to come up with gold dust and gold nuggets by diverting stream current or river current through and shoveling gravel that may contain gold into the box. There are slats in the box that something heavy like a gold nugget would be stopped by the slat as the water washes downstream, and lighter gravel would be washed over the slats, but gold, being heavy enough, would tend to stay. So this was a frequently used gold mining technique, other than the prospector with his gold pan, which also was successful for a lot of people. Here's another sluice box situation. Lots of Orientals, Chinese in particular, came over and were part of the gold rush at that time. And here there's a crew working. The guy at the farthest left with the light shirt appears to have a gold pan, so he's probably been doing some sluice mining. And the rest of the crew with shovels have been loading up the sluice box, and then at the end of the day, seeing what remained behind that would be gold. All right, this came up a bit. Could there be rival claimants to ownership of this hoard that could get it away from John and Mary? Uh, well, in numismatic news, and I know and like Harry Miller, here was his speculation. It was a conservative one. No one knows what the true origin of the hoard is, true enough. And it would be very easy for someone or some entity to step forward and make claims, either real or false, and tie these folks up in court for years. Silence is golden. Actually, the next couple slides will show that it's not really going to be easy for anyone to lay claim to this, and no one has. Here's partly why in the middle. All right, only in the case of provable theft, and the U.S. Mint has waived claim, as you saw Adam Stump's quotation, waived claim to the hoard having any connection to any theft from the U.S. Mint, with no other thefts of this time for this amount of record from anyone else. Um, Treasure trove. Uh, Only in the case of provable theft could someone have a claim. But all right, there's no provable theft. Now let's go to treasure trove, which by legal definition, quote, includes gold coins, etc., deliberately hidden or concealed and sufficiently long ago that the original owner can be considered dead or not discoverable. Treasure trove goes to the finder in those cases. Well, the last gold coin was dated 1894. I think it's safe to say that the original owner of those coins can be considered dead or not discoverable at this point. The only other exception is if the finder of the coins is trespassing on property not his or her own. But all right, since the finder of treasure trove um, and John and Mary weren't trespassing. That was their land. They had a mortgage on it. It was legally theirs. The finder of treasure trove takes title to it against all but the true owner, who's dead and gone for sure after all this time. So there were no rival claims that dragged John and Mary into court and into disputes. Circumstances lined up and the law lined up in such a way that they didn't have to worry about that. They weren't trespassing. It wasn't a theft. The original owner wasn't going to show up and say, it's mine, it's mine. So John and Mary have title to it as treasure trove, which they found on their property. Okay, the marketing plan. Well, um, as mentioned, the coins were conserved in-house in various solutions. 1,411 were sent to PCGS for slabbing, but there were 1,427. So John had abrasively cleaned about 200 of them, he said. The 16 coins not sent to PCGS must have been those of inherent lowest value, those most abrasively cleaned, maybe both of the above. But obviously, 1,411 is certainly the bulk of the hoard. This was interesting. Amazon, because of its worldwide network of potential bidders, Kagan's decided to auction to market the coins through Amazon starting on May 27th, 2014 at fixed prices. Damaged coins, and you'll see an example of one where even the solutions, there must have been copper near the surface. Gold is a noble metal that won't combine with other items, but you'll see one of the coins on Amazon's list that clearly shows some form of corrosion that couldn't have been soaked off of it. Well, all right, that coin would go for 2,500. 3,000 to 5,000 for undamaged circulated coins, and then 5 grand for the lowest the lowest grade mint state coins. Heritage and Stack's Bowers and Goldbergs and all the rest of the auction houses perhaps are considering this form of marketing a little bit, although in my opinion, what it would really take to get them to jump in would be a hoard of this nature that received national and international publicity, where marketing through Amazon's with a potential incredible number of bidders would be worthwhile. It wouldn't work for most coin estates, which would be less well known. Something like the Eliasberg board, the only complete collection of every U.S. coin ever made, had Amazon been around then, it might have been an interesting way to go, because that that collection, Louis P. Eliasberg, was so well publicized and so well known. Here's an example of the Kagan's sheet that would go on Amazon. And over on the middle left, you see the 1884 S20 that still has stuff on it. You can see the 1883 S that's in the top row, second from your left, has something on Liberty's face that could not be removed. But all the rest of them look to have been effectively and non-abrasively conserved. What about taxes? Well, everybody has to face taxes, right? Here's the story on tax consequences for John and Mary. Treasure trove, which is what they have under the law, is subject to federal income tax in the year the treasure trove is found. Here's a Supreme Court case, Cesarini versus United States from 1969, that established that yes, treasure trove is subject to taxes in that year. All right. The federal income tax rate for the Hoard coins is 39.6%. The California income tax rate is 13.3%. It amounts to a total tax of about 47%. And in brackets, I explain the funny math because since you can deduct state income taxes from your federal income tax, it's not just a matter of adding 39.6 plus 13.3 because you can deduct the 13.3. All right, on the Hoard coin's estimated $10 million value, that would be due as soon as April of 2014. You know, and now here's another speculation on my part, just like the fishing guide. I think that it seems likely from what John and Mary said about helping other people and giving back. I don't think they care how much. Pretend they are it ended up being about 9 million. I think the 1866S, recent conversation with David McCarthy at summer seminar this year, that one is still unsold. So in the tax year 2014, about 9 million or so, 9+ million, it would have been subject to about 50% tax. Okay, that leaves 4.5 million. Well, if John and Mary wanted to give 1 million to the arts and 1 million to help feed people, they still got 2.5 million more or less. And that comes down to the question of how many millions do any of us need as opposed to how much do any of us want. John and Mary did promptly pay the appropriate taxes. And as far as I know, they did contribute. I don't know the amounts they contributed to the arts or to feed hungry people, but they did give back. They're special people. Now we come back to those quotations again, and I won't, bore you too much here. John was concerned about the property. He can pay the mortgage. When we look at Mary's in the middle, there are people in our community who are hungry and don't have enough to eat. We'll also donate to the arts and other causes. Down at the bottom, it's given us an opportunity to think about how to give back. One of the first things they did, by the way, to show that they're serious about giving back, they donated in 1874 S20 to the San Francisco Museum and Historical Society. That's an example of giving to the arts. The coin auction for 15 thou for that 120 on the 27th of May of 2014. So they did give back, not just with that coin, but with lots of the rest of it as well. Okay, and there's kind of the bibliography I used. You saw the films pretty much. Wikipedia provided some, Smithsonian National Museum of American History, Bering Center was some. The Coin World and Numismatic News and Coin Week were a part of my research, and it was great fun putting this together. So that completes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. It's such a great story of involving two wonderful people, I would suggest. I'll turn it back over to Paula. And Paula, do I now stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll click stop share, and then you can take any questions or comments that come in.
Yeah. So we have a few in here already. Is there a record of which dates came from each individual can? That may indicate whether or not the cans were buried over time or all at once. That was early on in the presentation. So,
Uh, I'm not aware of any inventory of the cans because it appears, my inference is that John in particular dumped them all out, cleaned about 200 of them, and John would not have paid any attention to the dates in the cans. He was just looking at gold coins, what Mary had described as a wonderful hot potato that they'd found. So I truly doubt that there's any inventory by can of what the dates were. But that's a good question and a good supposition. I just don't, I'm inferring that there's not. I've never heard or seen of any inventory with that. And knowing that John was the first one to get them, I don't think that he
probably
took
not,
the time to do
huh?
that.
Yeah. Did the owners ever sell or put to auction out of the cans in which the coins were found?
The cans themselves,
Let me reread. Did the owners ever sell or put to auction any of the cans in which the coins were found?
I don't know. That's interesting. Not on Amazon, at least. And as David McCarthy had mentioned to me, the 1866 Ethno model is still, it's not been sold yet. So I'm speculating that the cans have not yet been sold. Um, but I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't
That's
know for
okay.
sure.
Yeah. Why was the hoard called Saddle Ridge?
Somewhere on their property, there is a ridge that looked like or reminded them of a saddle, probably along the circuitous path that went through their presumed 120 or so acres.
Hmm.
It's not named any more specifically like that, but a saddle ridge
Hmm.
shaped ridge could be just about anywhere in the gold country
Right.
in the Sierra Madre foothills.
Yeah. Have the owners of the land prior to John and Mary been researched to determine whether they had any possible relationship to the hoard?
Uh, they didn't find it, whoever the prior owners were, and they sold it to John and Mary. So they have no claim under
Hmm.
treasure trove. Wondering, someone asked me one time, could we figure out who buried the coins based on who owned the land in the 1890s? And I looked into that. In 1900, only 43% of California land was in private hands. Uh, and it was a hodgepodge of Mexican land grants, Spanish land grants, Homestead Act from 1862, where you could settle 160 acres and stay there for 5 years. But because of that hodgepodge and the fact that 57% of the land was not in private hands at that time, there's no antecedent to uh, possible to a particular person who would have buried the
Hmm.
cans. But as far as the prior owners, once they sold the land to John and Mary, that's it. Uh,
Yep.
they're out of the picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the same question, but I'm going to read it just so they know that I saw it. Has research been done to determine who owned the property during the late 1890s? So there you go. Has there been any debrief with the Kagans that would say whether they felt the eBay sales method worked well for them or another way might have been better?
It wasn't eBay, it was Amazon.
Hmm.
But it's my understanding from conversations with David McCarthy that Amazon got picked because of its worldwide network of gazillions of potential bidders and the fact that this Saddle Ridge Gold Coin Hoard was internationally publicized. But also the fact that, to my knowledge, no other major auction sales have gone through Amazon tells me that okay, it worked out pretty well. I mean, they did get close to 10 million, and the 1866 Ethno motto is still unsold, and that's potentially another million or so all by itself. I'm not sure what the plans are for that. I have no idea. Uh, I should mention this too, and I was saddened by this. Sometime since the discovery, John and Mary separated and they sold their land, their beloved land that John paid the mortgage on and so on. But they have moved on with their lives. I guess I'm sad because just the wonderful attitude they have wanting to give back. made me think, oh boy, this couple will be together forever. Their values are so good. But of course, in human relations, um, relationships can break up, and apparently theirs did. I was just sad to hear about it.
Mm.
Where they went and who bought their land, clearly they haven't told anyone other than Kagan's about where the Saddle Ridge gold coin hoard was found. And the new owners have the land now. David McCarthy did tell me that because hoarders very often will bury their riches in more than one spot because they're often afraid that someone will find the one spot
Mm.
that they picked. Kagan and McCarthy recommended, and they did, search virtually all of John and Mary's property that was at all close to the path or any trail going through it to see if they could find another hoard. They didn't. So the new owners of John and Mary's property probably don't have anything else, but then again, who knows? Maybe that's where Dimmick buried his hoard. Who
Uh,
knows?
I have a question. I have a question. Do the people that bought the land know that the gold was found on that land or no?
I don't think so because
Yeah.
then they would have blabbed, so to
Yeah.
speak. Oh, we know who the people are who found this gold coin hoard. And
Okay.
John
Yeah.
and Mary have and Kagan's have done a very good job of keeping their identities totally secret and totally private. David telling me right from the beginning when I first started conversing with
Yeah.
him, there's a lot I can't tell you because I'm sworn to confidentiality.
Yeah. We have a lot of sleuths on here because somebody also is asking if the location of the hoard was shared, wouldn't it be easy to identify the previous landowner circa 1894? But that's goes back into I think what you already answered, but
Yeah, it probably was not discernible who the heck. It may not have been when 57% of California is not
yeah,
in private hands in 1900.
yeah,
Uh, that's a lot of land,
yeah,
and very likely including John and Mary's.
yeah. Why is that one 1866 S coin still not sold?
My guess is that the bids on Amazon did not, I'm speculating now, just like the fishing guide, that the bids for that superb coin were not high enough in the estimate of Kagan's to justify selling it.
Mm,
My guess is that Kagan's advised John and Mary to hold that and to wait to see what the market did. And at some future major sale, maybe a fun show or an ANA, for instance, an ANA National, it may reappear again.
mm,
But for now, it's out there
mm-hmm.
somewhere.
No. As an FYI, Amazon did auction some SS Central American things such as gold dust.
Okay, and I hadn't known that.
Mm,
That was marketed extensively, but I didn't know as much about that one. That's good to know. All right, Amazon is perhaps for a major hoard a good place to go. Maybe that's why Kagan's then, because the Central America was 1988. So
mm-hmm.
fine. By
Yeah.
2013, that may have been why Kagan's decided to go with Amazon.
What methods of cleaning did Kagan's use?
David would not be specific. He said they were proprietary, quote, proprietary solutions. And he didn't even say how many, but he used a plural.
Hmm.
So a couple of solutions that were proprietary, done, I'm sure, with expert chemists' advice, were the ones used. But the exact nature of those, the specific nature of those, David did not share with me.
Okay. Lots of secrets in this, isn't it? The Amazon SSCA auction was in conjunction with Sotheby's. Just FYI there.
All right, and that then would provide an international link. So that would make some sense also. Okay, good. That's another good one to know.
Yeah. Okay, that I don't have any more questions, so I'm going to do my official wrap up, but I will leave questions open. Actually, we have another one. Sotheby's was given the rights to sell the insurer's proceeds of the sales.
Wait, say that again, Paula?
Sotheby's was given the rights to sell the insurer's proceeds of the sales.
Okay. Person knows a great deal more than I
Yes.
do about the involvement of anyone other than Amazon. I had thought
Yeah.
Amazon was it, but obviously not.
It's okay. Everybody learned something today. I
Yep.
want to say thanks everybody for being here and thanks Bob for a really great presentation. Our NumismaTalks are being recorded and will be available on our website at money.org under the Education tab once they're edited. Please be sure to check for future programs on our website at money.org under the Education tab. And it looks like we don't have any more questions, so that's going to be the wrap. Thanks so much, Bob.
Yep. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, everyone.